What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video as the New York Giants get set to take on the Washington football team in just 2 short days, which maybe you don't want to call it a must-win, meaning that if they don't win, the season is over, but it's damn near close. Teams that start 0-2 in the NFL, 12% of the time they make the playoffs, and for a team like the New York Giants, a team that routinely seems to start 0-2 and put themselves in holes at the beginning of the year, this is a game that they really need to do everything in their power to find a way to get a win, and it will not be easy going up against the Washington football team. The Washington football team lost to the Chargers week 1, 20-16 at home, and now they'll be playing their second game straight at FedEx Field as they look to start 1-1 as well. So as desperate as the New York Giants are going into this game, the same could be said for the Washington football team. The one saving grace for these teams is possibly they're playing in the NFC East, but of course the Dallas Cowboys, a lot of people were a little bit scared of the way they looked week 1. The Eagles came off a win, albeit it was not surprising that they beat the Falcons. It was surprising in the method in which they did it. So maybe some of the teams in this division could be better than we initially anticipated, and we'll get those answers throughout the course of the season. But regardless, neither one of these teams could put themselves in a 1-1 hole. Taylor Heinicke will be starting for the Washington football team. He has some mobility. He's shown the ability to create some big plays. Is a downgrade, you would have to think, from a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has as much experience as he does in the NFL. So we'll see if the New York Giants defense can wake up and take advantage of that. Today we got a couple of injury reports for the New York Giants leading up into the game. Of course, there's a quick turnover. Going to talk about the news that came out about Saquon Barkley. Also going to talk about the news that came out about Shane Lemieux. And I want to touch on a quote that came out from Joe Judge and give my opinion on what he had to say. Listen, to win this football game, I'm going to say the same thing that I said last week. Run the ball, stop the run, limit turnovers. And that's just football 101, especially when you're going up against a defense like the Washington football team. That's their bread and butter. That's how they're going to win football games. The New York Giants, with that pass rush, have to do everything in their power to try to help Daniel Jones out, something that they were unable to do week 1. Even though the pass protection was pretty good, they couldn't establish a run to save their lives, and the defense couldn't get off the football field. If the defense plays that way against Washington and Taylor Heinicke, I can tell you right now, we are not getting out with a victory. It is going to be hard to surpass 20 points against this team. Justin Herbert just last week put up 20 points at FedEx Field, even though the Chargers were able to come out with a win because the defense got the job done. So it will not be easy. But the New York Giants cannot play ultra conservative. Yes, they need to establish the run, but when you throw, you have to have times where you try to take shots down the field. There's no denying it. If you're throwing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-yard routes time and time again, that's not going to keep the defense honest. New York Giants have to come out with a more aggressive game plan when it comes to throwing the football. This past game, it looked like as the game was going along, some chemistry was being built between Kenny Golladay and Daniel Jones, and that needs to continue going into this week. Golladay was quoted as saying today that he thinks it will get better, and he basically said Daniel needs to throw to me, even if it's in tight coverage. He needs to trust me as a wide receiver to go up and get the football, and hopefully, based off some of the catches Golladay was able to make week 1, that will be the case going up against Washington. First thing we're going to touch on is the injury news about Shane Lemieux. Now, we all knew going into the year that Shane Lemieux was dealing with, I think, a partially torn meniscus, and more than likely probably wasn't going to last the season, which is why the Giants made as many moves as they did right before the season started when they brought in all these interior offensive linemen. And it looks as if Lemieux more than likely will not be playing this week, and if he does, expect him to be on a very limited snap count. This past week, he barely played. I think he took about 30% of the snaps before he was relieved of duty for Expect Bredeson, who, of course, is the offensive lineman that we picked up via the trade from the Baltimore Ravens. This coming out from Jordan Renan. No Shane Lemieux at practice. Where do the Giants go at left guard if Lemieux knee is not ready? Some options, Nick Gates and Expect Bredeson. I think there's only one option there. I don't think you move Nick Gates from the center spot. He's played well there, and Bredeson was the guy that stepped in the first game, so I don't really view Gates as an option. I think it'll be Bredeson. I expect Bredeson to start in this game, and hopefully he can get the job done. The one thing I'll say about Ben, looked like he was doing a really good job in terms of pass protection in the first game. The thing I worry about, and what Shane was actually good at, was run blocking, something that we really struggled with week 1. Didn't create any running lanes, whether it be for Booker or Saquon Barkley, and that needs to get much better against this Washington football team. But a way that it could help, I think, is if you try to stretch the field to keep that defense honest. But we'll see what the New York Giants got coming out. This then coming out from Jordan Renan as well, talking about Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley says he feels pretty good. Obviously, still going to be soreness after taking hits for the first time in a year, which, yeah, we all know that he's got to get back into playing shape. If I'm honest, I don't expect him to be the same old Saquon from 2018 in week 2. That's why I've said I'm probably going to wait until week 3 to really get a good grasp on this offense. When Barkley has another 10 days to recover, he's taken some hits. That's when I think you'll start to see Barkley hopefully rev it up into the next gear and this offense really start to turn things up when we go up against Atlanta, New Orleans, and the Dallas Cowboys. But we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Barkley admitted that with 2 games in 4 days off a serious injury, schedule isn't ideal, but he didn't see his explosiveness as a problem on Sunday. I think he was just trying to get a feel for the game. That's my honest opinion, and I did see his explosiveness as being a problem. If you ask me, he didn't really try to use it, but that's understandable. I don't expect him to be the old Saquon his first game back coming off that injury. This then, a quote coming out about Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley was given perspective from his family after his first game back. Obviously, I was upset about the loss, but my family members made me realize that the goal was to come out of the game healthy. And of course, and it's not just about one game, of course. We need to see it for 17 games this year. We need to see Saquon Barkley stay on the football field if we intend to extend this guy past the 2020 season. And hopefully he does. I'm rooting for Barkley. I think he's a great playmaker, but he needs to get back to himself. It's a step in the right direction, but we need to see him continue to progress coming back off of that injury. This then coming out about from Dan Duggan. And I don't understand this quote coming out from Joe Judge. I'm going to give my honest opinion on it. Dan first tweeted this. Judge just opened the presser with a 6-minute scouting report on Washington. Thoughts and prayers to the PR intern responsible for transcribing that. Then went on to say, biggest takeaway, don't expect the offense to open it up Thursday. Judge emphasized how the Washington football team doesn't allow explosive plays. Said you have to tick, tick, tick down the field. And listen, I'll be the first to say that I completely respect this Washington defense. It's why I've said the first 2 weeks that the New York Giants, if they're going to win these games, they're going to win it by establishing a ground game and winning on defense. But by the same token, the best friend to a ground game, you have to try to stretch the field and not go tick, tick, tick down the field. In the NFL, big plays are what ultimately win football games. You need a good blend of both. But the Giants had no big plays last year. They started to open it up a bit this past game as the game progressed. It looked like they were throwing more balls down in the 15 to 20 yard variety, but that needs to be the goal coming out from the start, because if they're not keeping that secondary offense, the New York Giants are not going to be able to run the ball. They're going to stuff the box. They're going to put 8 in the box, and especially with a limited Saquon Barkley, don't expect him to be breaking any big runs. If we're going to win, yes, we absolutely need to establish the ground game, which will only help open up the pass game. And with this, with these pass rushers that Washington has, you can only figure that you can't ask Daniel Jones to drop back 35 to 40 times. But when he does, you need to be aggressive. Were there times in this game where I felt like they were? Yeah, but it wasn't enough. So, and the other issue I have, and this could be a smokescreen, by the way, by Joe Judge. I want to preface, by my opinion by saying that. I should have said that earlier. Could absolutely be a smokescreen. But if it's not, I don't understand what Joe Judge is doing here, relaying the game plan for the New York Giants going up against the Washington football team. He's basically saying, yeah, they have a great defense, and we know we're not going to be able to hit them for big plays, so we're going to try a long, methodical drives. And you're going to need that in this game. But with the offense that they have and the backup quarterback that they have in place and no Curtis Samuel, I think the New York Giants could afford to make a turnover or two if it means that they potentially create a big play. This offense desperately needs that. Touchdowns have been hard to come by. Last year, I think we only had one game where we had over 30 points, and that was against the Dallas Cowboys defense. We're not scoring 30 in this game. I think it'll be in the high teens to low 20s if we win it. But if we can't establish a ground game, we will not win this contest. We need to get out with a 1-1 start, and if we don't, the pressure will be high going up against the Atlanta Falcons. I would prefer not to have to go into that game 0-2. We'll see what the Giants got. It's just 2 short days. You guys know, just like me, I'm sick and tired of talking about this team losing and going out there and getting dominated, and there's still a lot of question marks. We have to hope that they could get it together going into week 2, but it looks like Bredeson will be starting on the offensive line. I would expect to see Barkley out there. He's questionable, but he talked about the recovery of his injury. Golladay has come out and said that he expects to see more big plays in the offense, and we'll see what the New York Giants got coming up against the Washington football team. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.